So Andy was a real great natural leader, even though he wasn't formally a producer on the show and formally a writer. He was a tremendous contributor.
And Oscar goes to Ron Howard.
I love all kinds of movies, all kinds of stories, really, and I always have, and that's taken me on some fantastic.
For decades, Ron Howard has been Hollywood's ultimate Mr. Nice Guy. He's the beloved director with the picture-perfect family, the living embodiment of the American dream. This is a guy who went from child star to Hollywood legend without a single public scandal. He's a celebrated director everyone wants to work with, a devoted husband of nearly 50 years, and a proud dad to 4 kids who seem to adore him. It's a story so clean, so wholesome, you'd think he wrote it for one of his own feel-good movies. But what if it's just that? A well-directed story. For years, whispers in Hollywood have hinted at a darker narrative, one of jealousy and resentment, focused on the one person you'd least expect, his own daughter. And these aren't just random internet rumors. They're persistent murmurs that have echoed through Hollywood, suggesting a deep fracture in America's favorite family. The story we've been sold is one of fatherly pride. But some insider gossip, old reports and quiet observations paint a very different picture. Today, we're peeling back the layers of this perfect image. We'll look at the so-called evidence, the psychology of a Hollywood dynasty, and expose the surprising truth behind the vicious rumors. What really happens behind the Howard family's closed doors? The answer is way more shocking than you'd ever imagine. To get why these rumors are so wild, you first have to understand the man himself. Ron Howard is more than a director. He's an institution. His story starts in front of the camera as little Opie Taylor on The Andy Griffith Show. He was the freckle-faced, universally loved son of America's favorite sheriff, a symbol of a simpler time. Even back then, his actor parents, Rance and Jean Howard, were fiercely protective, trying to give him a normal childhood in the middle of all that fame. As he got older, he got more famous. He jumped straight from Opie to Richie. Cunningham on Happy Days, another iconic role that made him a household name. He was the clean-cut, all-American teen, the guy you could bring home to meet your parents. While the 70s were all about rebellion, Ron Howard was a rock of stability and decency. In a town famous for chewing up young stars, Ron didn't. Just survive. He thrived. His personal life was just as perfect. He met Cheryl Alley in high school. Their first date was November 1st, 1970, to see It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, followed by pizza. It was a classic love story. He once said, "I met her, and there was never anybody else." They got married in 1975 and have been together ever since, a lifetime by Hollywood standards. He calls her his unbelievably supportive rock. Together, they built the ultimate family, raising their 4 kids, Bryce Dallas, twins Jocelyn and Paige, and son Reed, far from the Hollywood chaos in Greenwich, Connecticut, trying to shield them from the pressures Ron grew up with. When Ron switched from acting to directing, a lot of people were skeptical, but he proved them all wrong with modern classics like Apollo 13, A Beautiful Mind, and The Da Vinci Code. He won Oscars for Best Director and Best Picture, securing his spot as a Hollywood great. Through it all, his reputation stayed squeaky clean. He was known as a kind, patient leader who made his sets feel like a family. Actors loved working with him, studios trusted him with massive budgets, and the press ate it all up. The image was complete. Ron Howard, the kid who made it big, the Oscar-winning director, the perfect family man. He seemed untouchable. And that's exactly why the rumors are so jarring. Because they suggest that behind this flawless facade, a bitter resentment was brewing. A resentment aimed right at his oldest daughter, Bryce Dallas Howard, the one who seemed destined to carry on his legacy. The gossip suggests the man who directed stories about overcoming adversity was secretly creating a toxic environment in his own home. The public story has always been that Ron Howard was a proud, supportive dad. But the Hollywood rumor mill loves to tell a different story. The gossip claims the first signs of trouble showed up when Bryce Dallas Howard announced she wanted to be an actress. For an outsider, her path seemed paved with gold. But behind the scenes, the reaction was supposedly anything but enthusiastic. Publicly, Ron has said he and his wife Cheryl were dead set against their kids becoming child actors. He wanted to protect them from the intense pressure and unfair comparisons they'd face, especially with his own childhood roles being so iconic. He wanted them to have normal lives, work normal jobs. Bryce has confirmed this, talking about how she worked as a waitress and on an assembly line. On the surface, that sounds like great parenting. But some sources who claim to have known the family back then suggest it was more about control than protection. The whispers allege Ron's resistance was less about Bryce's well-being and more about his own anxieties over the Howard brand he had so carefully built. The supposed problem wasn't that Bryce wanted to act. It was the kind of actor she wanted to be. After high school, she didn't cash in on her famous name. Instead, she went to NYU's prestigious Tisch School of the Arts, studying serious theater at the Stella Adler Studio and performing Shakespeare. She was drawn to complex, dark material, a world away from her father's blockbuster films. This is where the resentment narrative starts. Was Ron proud, or did he see her artistic taste as a rejection of his legacy? Did he see her move to New York as an act of defiance? This idea got a huge boost from a persistent but inaccurate rumor that she dropped the Howard name professionally. This rumor was repeated for years, seen as a deliberate attempt to sever ties. It was framed as a massive slap in the face. You have one of the most powerful names in Hollywood, and you refuse to use it? People wondered what she was running from. According to Bryce herself, her parents were hurt, but not by a name drop that never actually happened. They were hurt by the idea that she even considered it out of insecurity. They reportedly asked her, "Aren't you proud to come from our family?" It's a reasonable question, but the rumor mill twisted it. Did it hint at a father who demanded his legacy be acknowledged, who saw his daughter's independence as betrayal? So, was Ron the protective dad, or a patriarch infuriated that his heir was carving her own path? These whispers about her name and her artistic choices were the first things gossip columnists pointed to as cracks in the perfect family portrait. Growing up as the child of a living legend is a pressure few of us can imagine. Every success is questioned, every failure is front-page news. For Bryce Dallas Howard, this pressure was supposedly made worse by a father who wasn't just famous, but who represented the peak of mainstream Hollywood success. The rumors claim Ron cast a long shadow that Bryce struggled to escape, and that this struggle was a huge source of tension. Her big break didn't come from her dad, but from a director who was, in many ways, his opposite, M. Night Shyamalan. He cast her in The Village. After seeing her on stage, no audition needed. It was a dark, polarizing thriller, not exactly a Ron Howard movie. After that, she made an even more controversial choice, taking over for Nicole Kidman in Lars von Trier's Manderley. Von Trier is one of cinema's most confrontational directors, known for pushing his actors to their limits. Gossip loves to point out these choices. Here was his daughter, deliberately working with art house provocateurs. The narrative painted Ron as having a secret, "I told you so" attitude. The rumor was that he felt she was running off to play with the rebels, and if she got burned, that was on her. This narrative seemed to gain steam as Bryce's career took off with huge commercial hits like The Help and The Twilight Saga. They were massive successes, but they weren't Ron Howard movies. All the while, the one collaboration everyone was waiting for never happened. For years, interviewers asked, "When will your dad direct you?" The excuses were always plausible: scheduling conflicts, not finding the right project. But as the years Stretched on, the absence of a big father-daughter movie started to look less like a coincidence and more like a choice. Whispers from casting agencies claimed Bryce's name was floated for her dad's projects but always dismissed. Was Ron Howard, the super producer, really unable to find a single role for his famous, talented daughter? Or was he actively choosing not to? Some speculated he couldn't handle the idea of her challenging him on his own set. Ron himself admitted in 2025 that their directing styles are different, saying Bryce takes collaboration to a whole other level and isn't afraid to challenge even the studio's thinking. While he said it as a compliment, gossip columnists read between the lines. Maybe Hollywood's Mr. Nice Guy secretly feared a creative showdown with his own daughter. It's a tangled web of rumors and whispers, and it's hard to know what to believe. We see a picture of a perfect family, but we hear stories of resentment and control. What do you think is really going on here? Is this a classic case of a Hollywood dynasty crumbling under the pressure, or is it all just smoke and mirrors? Let us know your theories in the comments below. And if you're intrigued by the hidden secrets of Hollywood's biggest stars, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, because the story is far from over. When the facts are thin, people love to play detective with body language. Public appearances and red carpet photos get scrutinized frame by frame for any hint of drama. And for those looking for proof of a rift between Ron and Bryce, there's been plenty of material to overanalyze over the years. One of the most cited examples is a 2018 joint interview. While they're all smiles, some observers noted a pattern. When Bryce talks about her childhood, Ron often displays what some experts call blocking behaviors, like subtly crossing his arms or covering his face with his hand. When Bryce playfully calls him out, his smile seems a little tight. Is it just TV interview awkwardness? Or is it a subconscious attempt to distance himself from her words? Another key piece of evidence for the theorists came from a 2020 TV appearance. Bryce mentioned her dad was hesitant to be in her documentary, Dads. She said he questioned why they should peek behind the curtain now after being a private-public family for over 60 years. That phrase, private-public family, is fascinating. Was Ron's hesitation really about privacy? Or was it about losing control of the narrative that he'd managed for so long? Analysts have also pointed to the physical distance between them on red carpets. Sure, there are tons of photos of them smiling together, but there are also plenty where they look stiff and formal. A body language writer for an online magazine claimed their poses look practiced, like colleagues, not a deeply bonded father and daughter. Then there are the verbal cues. In interviews, Ron often praises Bryce's work ethic in a way that can sound a little generic, like a CEO praising an employee. Bryce, in turn, often refers to him as my dad, but then quickly shifts to my parents, bringing her mother into the conversation, which some therapists say is a way to diffuse one-on-one tension. Perhaps the most telling moment for conspiracy theorists was Bryce's own admission that she wouldn't let her father come see her college plays because she was afraid people would recognize him. She framed it as her own insecurity. But was she protecting her anonymity or protecting herself from his judgment? The thought of telling her Oscar-winning director dad that he's not welcome at her show is powerful. Taken one by one, these moments mean nothing. But piled together, they create a compelling, if circumstantial, case that the Howard family's perfect picture might be just that, a picture. For years, the whispers have painted a dark picture of the Howard family. We've laid out all the so-called evidence, the name change that never was, the different career paths, the lack of a big movie together, the scrutinized body language. It makes for a great story. But what if that story, built by gossips and anonymous sources, is completely wrong? What if the shocking truth is there is no shocking truth? Let's re-examine the foundation of these rumors, starting with the biggest betrayal, Bryce dropping the Howard name. She has explained this multiple times. She's always been Bryce Dallas Howard professionally. The truth is, she was insecure when she was younger and considered not using her full name at NYU because she didn't want people to think she was getting by on nepotism. Far from being a slap in the face, it was proof of the work ethic her parents taught her. In fact, it was her parents' gentle questioning that made her embrace her full name with confidence. This wasn't a story of rejection. It was a story of a young woman finding her footing. Now, what about the claim that Ron was resentful of her career? The idea that he was secretly mad about her working with directors like M. Night Shyamalan just doesn't hold up. Ron Howard's own production company, Imagine Entertainment, has produced a huge range of movies and shows far outside his own directing style. The man champions unique filmmakers. He doesn't resent them. The idea he'd begrudge his own daughter for having a diverse career just doesn't fit. And what about the most glaring piece of evidence that he's never directed her in a big movie? People have spun this as a snub, but the real reason is much simpler and goes back to his original rule. He didn't want his kids to be child actors because he worried about the unfair comparisons. He told People magazine he knew any child of his would be unfairly compared to his own iconic roles. That fear didn't just disappear when they became adults. Directing Bryce would have invited a crazy level of scrutiny. The movie wouldn't have been a movie. It would have been a public referendum on their relationship. By keeping that professional boundary, they've allowed each other to have their own artistic space. But that doesn't mean they don't collaborate. Their collaboration is just deeper. Bryce has said her father is a huge mentor to her as a director. She even shadowed him on the set of Solo, a Star Wars story. He talks about her directing talent with incredible pride, saying she has taken collaboration to a new level. They talk about movies constantly. In fact, the idea for Ron's new film, Eden, came directly from a family trip to the Galapagos with Bryce. It was Bryce who saw the movie potential in a story they found together. That's not a father who despises his daughter. That's a partner. The truth is, the Howard family dynamic seems to be one of immense respect and smart boundaries. Bryce talks about her father with nothing but love, calling him a very present dad who would move the whole family to his film sets so they'd never be apart for long. On his birthday, she wrote, "I love you so much, Dad, more than words can say." He did the same for her, writing, "You've always made your mom and me happy and incredibly proud. The future you are building exceeds our wildest hopes." These are not the words of a man who secretly despises his daughter. They're the words of a father bursting with pride. So what is the shocking truth about why Ron Howard secretly despised his daughter? The truth is, he didn't. The entire narrative is a fabrication, built on misinterpreted parenting choices and a hunger for Hollywood drama. The story of Ron and Bryce Dallas Howard isn't about conflict. It's about legacy, not just a name, but a set of values. It's about a father who, after living through the pressure cooker of child stardom, did everything he could to give his kids a more grounded life. He didn't want a clone of himself. He and his wife, Cheryl, raised independent, ambitious kids and gave them the space to build their own careers. The evidence of a feud was never evidence of resentment. It was evidence of respect. Respect for Bryce's desire to forge her own identity, and respect for their father-daughter relationship by keeping it separate from the high-stakes pressure of a movie set. Their bond isn't found in a movie credit. It's found in quiet mentorship, shared vacations that spark new films, and gushing posts about how proud they are of each other. In the end, that wholesome, picture-perfect image of the Howard family, it might not be a lie after all. It might just be the truth. And in a world that thrives on scandal, maybe the most shocking secret is that there is no secret at all. But that leaves one final question. Why do these rumors persist? Are we just cynical about Hollywood refusing to believe something so good can be true? Or does the pressure of a dynasty always create complexities we can never fully understand? Let us know what you think in the comments below.